The desert heat shimmered off the asphalt as Master Chief Rodriguez pulled his pickup truck through the gates of Naval Base Coronado. In the passenger seat, his 8-year-old daughter Emma pressed her face against the window, watching the morning training exercises with the intensity of a hawk studying its prey. Today was different from her usual visits to Daddy's workplace. Today, she had asked to see where the real warriors trained. Colonel James Mitchell had been running SEAL training operations for over 2 decades. His weathered face and steel-gray eyes had witnessed the transformation of countless young men into America's most elite fighting force. Standing at 6'3" with shoulders that filled his desert camouflage uniform, he commanded respect through presence alone. When Rodriguez approached him with an unusual request that morning, Mitchell's initial reaction was a polite but firm shake of the head. "Sir, I know it's unconventional," Rodriguez began, his voice carrying the measured tone of a man who had served under fire in 3 different theaters of war. "But Emma has been asking about the training for months. She's not like other kids her age." Emma stood beside her father, barely reaching his elbow, wearing a simple pink t-shirt and blue jeans. Her dark hair was pulled back in a neat ponytail, and her brown eyes held an unusual steadiness that seemed out of place in someone so young. She didn't fidget or look around with typical childhood curiosity. Instead, she maintained eye contact with the colonel in a way that made him momentarily uncomfortable. "Rodriguez, you know the regulations," Mitchell replied, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to having his word be final. "The firing range is restricted to authorized personnel only. No civilians, especially not children." The conversation was taking place outside the main training facility, where the sounds of morning PT echoed across the compound. Groups of SEAL candidates were running their daily miles, their boots hitting the pavement in synchronized rhythm. The American flag snapped in the desert wind above them, and somewhere in the distance, the sharp crack of rifle fire indicated that advanced training was already underway. Emma tugged gently on her father's sleeve. When he looked down, she whispered something that made his eyebrows rise slightly. Rodriguez straightened and looked at Mitchell with an expression that mixed paternal pride with something approaching embarrassment. "Sir, she says she can outshoot any of your trainees," Rodriguez said quietly, glancing around to make sure no one else could hear. "I've tried to explain that this isn't a game, but she's insistent." Mitchell felt his jaw tighten. In his experience, civilian families often had unrealistic expectations about military life, fueled by movies and television shows that bore little resemblance to reality. The idea that an 8-year-old girl believed she could compete with Navy SEALs in any capacity struck him as both naive and potentially disrespectful to the men who had earned their places through blood, sweat, and sacrifice. "Rodriguez, I'm going to pretend I didn't hear that," Mitchell said, his voice dropping to a warning tone. "These men train for months to qualify with their weapons. They face elimination every day. Some of them have been preparing for this their entire lives." But Emma was no longer looking at the colonel. Her attention had shifted to a group of SEAL candidates who were jogging past, their faces already showing the strain of morning exertion. Among them was Petty Officer Jake Harrison, a 24-year-old from Montana who had been struggling with his marksmanship scores. Despite his excellent physical condition and tactical knowledge, Harrison's shooting accuracy remained frustratingly inconsistent, putting his place in the program at risk. "Daddy," Emma said, her voice carrying clearly in the morning air, "why is that one holding his breath wrong?" Both Rodriguez and Mitchell turned to look at Harrison, who was indeed visible among the group of runners. From 50 yards away, there was no obvious indication of anything unusual about his breathing pattern. Yet Emma had somehow identified him specifically among the dozens of candidates. "How could you possibly know that?" Mitchell asked, genuinely curious despite his irritation with the situation. "His shoulders are too tight," Emma replied matter-of-factly. "When you hold your breath like that, your heart beats too fast. It makes your hands shake when you try to aim." Mitchell found himself studying Harrison more carefully. The young SEAL candidate did appear to carry tension in his shoulders, something that might indeed affect his shooting performance. But the fact that a child had identified this from a distance, without any apparent training or instruction, struck him as impossible. Emma learned to shoot when she was 5, Rodriguez explained, seeing the colonel's confusion. My father was a Marine sniper in Vietnam. He taught me, and I taught her. She's been coming to the civilian range with me since she was 6. Civilian shooting and military marksmanship are completely different disciplines, Mitchell responded automatically. The stress, the equipment, the standards. I know about stress, Emma interrupted, her young voice carrying an unexpected firmness. Last month at the state competition, I shot expert level while the man next to me was yelling at his rifle because he kept missing. Mitchell felt his certainty wavering slightly. State-level civilian competitions were serious affairs, and achieving expert-level scores required genuine skill. But the gap between civilian sporting events and military training remained vast in his mind. The morning sun was climbing higher, and the training schedule demanded his attention. Mitchell had a class of SEAL candidates waiting for their marksmanship evaluation, including Harrison, whose continued struggles might result in his removal from the program. The last thing Mitchell needed was additional complications to an already challenging day. Rodriguez, I appreciate your daughter's interest in what we do here, Mitchell said, checking his watch. But I have actual SEALs to train. Perhaps you could bring her back during a family day event when she can observe from a safe distance. Emma looked up at her father with an expression that mixed disappointment with determination. Rodriguez recognized that look from previous occasions when his daughter had set her mind on something. Emma possessed a quiet stubbornness that reminded him of his own father, the Marine who had taught 3 generations of Rodriguez family members to shoot with deadly accuracy. Sir, Rodriguez said carefully, what if we made a compromise? Emma could observe the training from the designated area, and if any of your candidates are struggling, maybe she could offer some basic tips about breathing and stance. The suggestion struck Mitchell as absurd. The idea that Navy SEAL candidates might benefit from advice given by an 8-year-old child violated every principle of military hierarchy and training protocol he had spent his career defending. Yet something about Emma's quiet confidence and her apparent ability to identify technical issues from a distance made him hesitate before delivering his final refusal. At that moment, the sharp crack of rifle fire ceased abruptly, followed by the frustrated voice of Instructor Chief Petty Officer Williams echoing across the range. Harrison had apparently failed another shooting sequence, and Williams' patience was clearly wearing thin. Mitchell knew that Harrison's time in the program was running short, and losing another candidate to marksmanship failures would reflect poorly on the training staff. Emma was watching the range area with the same intense focus she had shown while observing the running candidates. Her small hands moved slightly, as if she were gripping an invisible rifle, and her breathing had settled into a slow, measured rhythm that Mitchell recognized as a shooter's breathing pattern. Daddy, Emma said quietly, the instructor is making that man nervous by standing too close. That's why he keeps pulling his shots to the right. Rodriguez and Mitchell exchanged glances. From their position, they couldn't clearly see the details of what was happening at the firing line, yet Emma seemed to be providing specific tactical analysis based on minimal visual information. How do you know he's pulling right? Mitchell asked, genuinely curious now. His elbow position changes every time the instructor moves behind him, Emma replied. When you're nervous, you compensate by gripping tighter, and that pulls your shots off target. Mitchell had observed exactly that phenomenon countless times during his career. Nervous shooters often developed a grip tension that affected their accuracy, and the proximity of evaluating instructors frequently made the problem worse. The fact that Emma had identified this issue from a distance suggested an understanding of marksmanship fundamentals that went beyond her years. The sound of footsteps on gravel announced the approach of Chief Williams, whose expression suggested that Harrison's morning session had not gone well. Williams was a compact, muscular man in his early 40s whose expertise in marksmanship instruction was matched only by his impatience with candidates who failed to meet standards. Colonel, Williams said with barely concealed frustration, Harrison just shot a 62 out of a possible 100. That's his 3rd consecutive failing score. I'm recommending immediate remedial training, but honestly, sir, I don't think he has the natural ability for this program. Mitchell felt the familiar weight of command decisions. Harrison was otherwise an excellent candidate whose physical fitness, leadership potential, and tactical knowledge all met or exceeded standards. But marksmanship remained a non-negotiable requirement for SEAL qualification, and 3 consecutive failures typically meant removal from training. Emma had been listening to the exchange with obvious interest. When Williams finished speaking, she looked up at the chief with the same steady gaze she had fixed on Mitchell earlier. "What kind of rifle is he using?" she asked. Williams looked down at her with surprise, then glanced at Mitchell for guidance. When the colonel nodded slightly, Williams answered with professional courtesy, despite his obvious bewilderment at being questioned by a child. "Standard M4 carbine with iron sights," Williams replied. "Same weapon system every candidate qualifies with." "Iron sights are harder when you're nervous," Emma said thoughtfully. "Is he closing his left eye or keeping both open?" "Both eyes open is the standard technique," Williams answered, his tone suggesting that he was humoring her questions while wondering why this conversation was taking place. "Maybe he needs to close his left eye until he's more relaxed," Emma suggested. "Some people see better that way when they're learning." Williams looked at Mitchell with an expression that clearly questioned the colonel's sanity. The suggestion that a SEAL candidate might benefit from using non-standard shooting techniques recommended by an 8-year-old girl challenged every assumption about military training protocols. But Mitchell found himself remembering his own early struggles with marksmanship training 30 years earlier. He had eventually overcome his difficulties, but not before spending additional weeks in remedial instruction that had nearly cost him his place in the program. Sometimes, unconventional solutions produce surprising results. "Chief," Mitchell said slowly, "Harrison is scheduled for additional range time this afternoon, correct?" "Yes, sir. Last chance session before we make the final decision about his status in the program." Mitchell looked down at Emma, who was still studying the range area with professional interest. Rodriguez waited nearby, his expression suggesting that he understood the significance of whatever decision his commanding officer was about to make. "Rodriguez, bring your daughter back at 1400 hours, Mitchell said finally. "She can observe Harrison's session from the designated area. If she has any insights that might help, we'll consider them." Williams' expression suggested that he thought his commanding officer had lost his mind, but 20 years of military service had taught him when to voice objections and when to simply follow orders. Emma's face lit up with excitement, though she maintained her composure with remarkable maturity. "Thank you, sir," Rodriguez said. "Emma won't be any trouble." As they walked back toward Rodriguez's truck, Mitchell found himself wondering what he had just agreed to. In his experience, successful military training relied on proven methods, established protocols, and gradually increasing challenges that built competence through repetition and discipline. The idea that a child might contribute meaningfully to that process seemed to contradict everything he had learned about effective instruction. Yet something about Emma's quiet confidence and apparent technical knowledge suggested that the afternoon session might prove more interesting than he had anticipated. Mitchell had built his career on making sound tactical decisions, even when they challenged conventional thinking. As Rodriguez's truck disappeared through the base gates, Mitchell found himself looking forward to 1400 hours with an anticipation he hadn't expected. Perhaps it was curiosity about whether Emma's apparent shooting knowledge was genuine, or perhaps it was hope that Harrison might finally overcome his marksmanship struggles before time ran out. Either way, the afternoon promised to be unlike any training session Mitchell had previously supervised during his long military career. The afternoon sun blazed overhead as Rodriguez's pickup truck returned to Naval Base Coronado at exactly 1400 hours. Emma sat quietly in the passenger seat, wearing the same pink t-shirt from the morning, but now carrying a small notebook where she had written down observations about shooting techniques she wanted to remember. Her father had used the lunch break to explain the seriousness of what they were about to witness. Colonel Mitchell was already waiting at the range entrance when they arrived. He had spent the intervening hours reviewing Harrison's training records and consulting with his staff about the unusual nature of the afternoon session. The consensus among his instructors remained skeptical, but Mitchell's reputation for unconventional problem-solving had earned him enough credibility to proceed with his experiment. The shooting range at Naval Base Coronado represented the pinnacle of military marksmanship training facilities. Multiple firing lanes stretched across 200 yards of desert terrain, with target systems capable of presenting scenarios ranging from basic accuracy tests to complex tactical simulations. The facility had trained thousands of SEALs over the decades, and its safety protocols were legendary for their thoroughness and effectiveness. Emma walked beside her father toward the observation area, her notebook clutched in one small hand. She had filled several pages with diagrams showing proper shooting stances and breathing techniques, illustrations that demonstrated a sophisticated understanding of marksmanship principles despite her age. Rodriguez had been amazed by his daughter's technical knowledge, though he had grown accustomed to her unusual abilities over the years. Chief Williams was conducting a final equipment check when they approached the firing line. Harrison stood at lane 7, his M4 carbine held at port arms while Williams verified the rifle's condition and sight alignment. The candidate's face showed the strain of knowing that his military career might end within the next hour, and his shoulders carried visible tension that Emma had identified from 50 yards away that morning. Rodriguez, position your daughter in observation area 3, Mitchell instructed. She'll have a clear view of the proceedings without interfering with safety protocols. The observation area consisted of a concrete platform elevated 4 feet above the firing line, surrounded by bulletproof glass and equipped with communications equipment that allowed observers to monitor range activities. Emma climbed onto the bench and immediately began studying Harrison's stance and grip through the protective barrier. Williams began the session with standard qualification procedures. Harrison would fire 40 rounds at various distances, requiring him to achieve a minimum score of 80 points to continue in the SEAL program. His previous attempts had fallen short by significant margins, and everyone present understood that this represented his final opportunity to demonstrate acceptable marksmanship skills. Candidate Harrison, assume firing position, Williams commanded. Harrison dropped to a prone position and brought his rifle to his shoulder. Emma watched intently as he adjusted his grip and sight alignment, her young face showing the same concentration that Mitchell had observed in veteran snipers preparing for critical shots. The first string of fire consisted of 10 rounds at 100 yards. Harrison's shots began well, with his initial 3 rounds striking within the acceptable scoring area. But as the string progressed, his accuracy deteriorated noticeably, with several rounds missing the target entirely. Cease fire, Williams called out after Harrison's 10th shot. Score 42 out of a possible 50, below minimum standard. Emma raised her hand like a student requesting permission to speak in class. Mitchell activated the communication system connecting the observation area to the firing line. Yes, Emma. His breathing is wrong, she said clearly. He's holding his breath too long between shots. That makes his heart beat faster and his hands shake. Williams looked up at the observation platform with obvious skepticism. Breathing control is fundamental to marksmanship instruction. Candidate Harrison has received extensive training in proper breathing techniques. But he's nervous, Emma replied. When people are nervous, they forget to breathe naturally. He needs to take 2 small breaths instead of 1 big one before each shot. Mitchell found himself intrigued by her analysis. Breathing control represented one of the most critical aspects of accurate shooting, and variations in technique could significantly affect performance under stress. The idea that Harrison might benefit from modified breathing patterns was worth investigating. Chief Williams, allow candidate Harrison to attempt the next string using the suggested breathing modification, Mitchell ordered. Williams' expression suggested that he considered the instruction highly irregular, but military discipline prevented him from questioning a direct order from his commanding officer. He approached Harrison and relayed Emma's suggestion about using shorter, more frequent breaths instead of the standard technique. The second string of fire showed immediate improvement. Harrison's first 5 shots struck consistently within the scoring area, and his overall stability appeared enhanced. Emma watched each shot through the observation window, occasionally making notes in her notebook about grip pressure and sight alignment. Better, she announced after Harrison completed the 10-round string. But his left elbow is still too low. That's why his shots are drifting left. Williams scored the target and confirmed that Harrison had achieved 46 points out of 50, a significant improvement, but still below the minimum required standard. The candidate's confidence appeared to be building, though tension remained visible in his posture and facial expression. Emma requested permission to speak again. Can I show him how to fix his elbow position? It's easier to understand when someone demonstrates. The suggestion created an extended silence on the firing line. The idea that an 8-year-old civilian might provide direct instruction to a Navy SEAL candidate challenged every protocol governing military training. Yet Harrison's improvement after implementing Emma's first suggestion was undeniable, and his remaining chances for success were rapidly diminishing. Absolutely not, Williams said firmly. Civilian personnel cannot provide direct instruction to military candidates under any circumstances. Emma appeared disappointed, but not surprised by the refusal. She returned her attention to Harrison's position, studying his stance with the intensity of a professional marksmanship instructor analyzing a student's technique. Rodriguez watched his daughter with a mixture of pride and amazement, recognizing the same focused concentration that his own father had displayed while teaching shooting fundamentals. Mitchell found himself facing an unusual command decision. Military training protocols existed for important safety and legal reasons, and allowing a child to provide direct instruction to SEAL candidates would establish a precedent that could have far-reaching implications. Yet Harrison's career hung in the balance, and conventional instruction methods had failed to produce acceptable results. Emma, Mitchell said over the communication system, can you describe exactly what candidate Harrison needs to change about his elbow position? His left elbow should be directly under the rifle instead of out to the side, she replied immediately. When your elbow is in the wrong place, it changes how the rifle moves when you breathe. That makes your shots go left or right instead of straight. Williams listened to Emma's explanation with growing surprise. Her technical description accurately identified a common marksmanship problem and provided a solution that corresponded with advanced shooting instruction principles. The fact that she could articulate these concepts clearly suggested genuine understanding rather than simply repeating information she had heard elsewhere. Chief Williams, relay Miss Rodriguez's instruction to candidate Harrison, Mitchell ordered. Ensure he understands the proper elbow placement before proceeding with the next string of fire. Williams approached Harrison and provided detailed guidance about elbow positioning based on Emma's observations. The candidate made adjustments to his stance while Williams verified that his new position met technical standards for stability and safety. Harrison's rifle now rested more naturally against his shoulder, and his breathing appeared more relaxed. The third string of fire produced Harrison's best performance of the day. 8 of his 10 shots struck within the highest scoring area of the target, with only 2 rounds falling into lower value zones. His total score of 47 points represented a substantial improvement and brought him within striking distance of the minimum qualifying standard. Emma was taking rapid notes in her notebook, documenting the changes in Harrison's technique and their effects on his accuracy. Rodriguez realized that his daughter was conducting a systematic analysis of marksmanship instruction methods, recording data with the precision of an experienced researcher. His confidence is better now, Emma announced. But he's still gripping the rifle too tight with his right hand. That twists the barrel just a little bit when he pulls the trigger. Williams verified Emma's observation by examining Harrison's grip pressure. The candidate was indeed maintaining excessive tension in his shooting hand, a common response to stress that could affect bullet trajectory in subtle but measurable ways. Candidate Harrison, relax your grip pressure, Williams instructed. Maintain control without excessive tension in your shooting hand. The fourth string of fire continued Harrison's improvement trend. 9 of his 10 shots struck within acceptable scoring areas, producing a score of 48 points and bringing his cumulative total within 5 points of the minimum qualifying standard. One more successful string would secure his place in the SEAL program. Emma had been studying Harrison's performance with increasing excitement. Her notebook contained detailed diagrams showing the relationship between grip pressure, breathing technique, and shooting accuracy. She had identified patterns in his shot placement that corresponded with specific technical problems and their solutions. "He's almost ready," she told her father quietly. "His breathing is good now, and his elbow position is correct. But he needs to trust his sight picture more. He's second-guessing himself when the sights look perfect." Mitchell had been monitoring Emma's commentary throughout the session, impressed by her systematic approach to analyzing Harrison's technique. Her observations consistently proved accurate, and her suggested corrections produced measurable improvements in the candidate's performance. The combination of technical knowledge and analytical ability she demonstrated seemed remarkable for someone her age. The final string of fire would determine Harrison's future in the SEAL program. Success would allow him to continue with his training, while failure would mean immediate removal and the end of his military special operations aspirations. Everyone present understood the significance of the moment, and tension was visible throughout the range facility. Harrison assumed his firing position with noticeably improved confidence. His breathing settled into the modified pattern Emma had suggested, and his rifle rested naturally against his shoulder with proper elbow placement. Williams verified his sight alignment and confirmed that the range was clear for live fire. "Candidate Harrison, you may commence firing when ready," Williams announced. The first shot struck the center of the target with satisfying precision. Harrison maintained his breathing rhythm and sight alignment for the second round, which also found its mark within the highest scoring area. Emma watched each shot through the observation window, occasionally whispering encouragement that only her father could hear. Shot after shot found its target with consistent accuracy. Harrison's technique remained stable throughout the string, and his confidence grew with each successful round. Williams scored each shot and maintained a running total that showed the candidate approaching the minimum qualifying standard. As Harrison prepared for his final shot, Emma leaned forward against the observation window. She had invested significant emotional energy in his success, and her own nervous tension was visible despite her attempts to maintain composure. The 10th shot struck the target with the same precision as the previous 9 rounds. Williams confirmed that Harrison had achieved a perfect score of 50 points for the final string, bringing his total score to exactly 80 points and meeting the minimum qualification standard by the narrowest possible margin. Cheers erupted from the observation area as Rodriguez celebrated his daughter's success in helping save Harrison's military career. Emma remained focused on the firing line, watching as Williams congratulated Harrison on achieving qualification status after weeks of struggling with marksmanship requirements. Mitchell found himself reassessing his assumptions about training methods and the sources of effective instruction. Emma's contributions have been instrumental in Harrison's success, proving that valuable insights could come from unexpected sources when combined with practical application and systematic analysis. Chief Williams approached the observation platform with an expression that mixed professional respect with personal amazement. Emma had demonstrated marksmanship knowledge that rivaled his own professional expertise, despite being decades younger than any instructor in the facility. "Miss Rodriguez," Williams said formally, "your observations and suggestions made the difference today. Candidate Harrison would not have qualified without your assistance." Emma smiled with the quiet satisfaction of someone whose abilities have been recognized and validated by experts in their field. Her notebook contained enough technical information to serve as a marksmanship instruction manual, documenting principles and techniques that had proven effective under real-world conditions. As the afternoon session concluded, Mitchell realized that he had witnessed something extraordinary. Emma's natural understanding of shooting fundamentals, combined with her ability to identify and solve technical problems, suggested talents that transcended normal expectations about age and experience. The range began its shutdown procedures as personnel secured equipment and conducted safety checks. Harrison remained at his firing position, studying his target with the satisfaction of someone who had overcome a significant personal challenge. His qualification scores would allow him to continue pursuing his goal of becoming a Navy SEAL. Emma packed her notebook carefully, preserving the documentation of her first formal involvement in military training activities. She had proven that expertise could manifest in unexpected forms when combined with careful observation, systematic analysis, and practical application of fundamental principles. Rodriguez thanked Colonel Mitchell for allowing Emma to participate in the session, acknowledging that the experience had been educational for everyone involved. Mitchell replied that he looked forward to discussing the implications of the afternoon's events with his training staff. As they prepared to leave the range facility, Emma turned for one final look at the firing line where Harrison had achieved his qualifying scores. Tomorrow would bring new challenges for the SEAL candidate, but today had proven that sometimes the most valuable assistance comes from the most unexpected sources. News of Emma's remarkable assistance in Harrison's qualification spread through Naval Base Coronado with the speed that only military communities can achieve. By evening, every instructor, candidate, and support staff member had heard some version of the story about the 8-year-old girl who had coached a struggling SEAL candidate to success. The details grew more elaborate with each retelling, but the core facts remained consistent enough to generate genuine interest throughout the training command. Colonel Mitchell spent the evening reviewing training records and consulting with his senior staff about the implications of the afternoon's events. Chief Williams had submitted a detailed report documenting Emma's contributions and their measurable effects on Harrison's performance. The report included specific technical observations and suggested modifications to existing marksmanship instruction protocols based on Emma's successful interventions. Petty Officer Harrison himself became an instant celebrity among his fellow candidates. His qualification scores had secured his position in the SEAL program, but more importantly, his experience working with Emma had provided him with new insights about managing performance anxiety and maintaining technical fundamentals under pressure. He spent the evening fielding questions from other candidates who were struggling with their own marksmanship challenges. Emma Rodriguez became the topic of numerous conversations in the base dining facility, where speculation about her background and abilities dominated dinner discussions. Some personnel expressed skepticism about the reported events, while others shared their own experiences with remarkably talented young people they had encountered during their military careers. The consensus seemed to be that something unusual had definitely occurred at the firing range. Rodriguez returned home that evening to find his wife, Maria, eager to hear about Emma's day at the base. Their daughter had been unusually quiet during the drive home, processing the significance of her successful contribution to Harrison's training. Over dinner, Emma described the technical aspects of marksmanship instruction with the precision of someone who had discovered a new passion. The breathing is the most important part, Emma explained to her mother. When people get nervous, they forget to breathe the right way, and that makes their heart beat too fast. Then their hands shake, and they can't hit their target. Maria Rodriguez had grown accustomed to her daughter's unusual insights, but Emma's technical explanation of marksmanship principles suggested a level of understanding that seemed advanced even by her standards. Maria found herself wondering about the long-term implications of Emma's apparent talents and interests. That evening, Rodriguez received several phone calls from colleagues who had heard about the day's events. The callers expressed curiosity about Emma's background and training, wanted to understand how she had developed such sophisticated technical knowledge. Rodriguez explained his family's shooting tradition and Emma's early introduction to marksmanship fundamentals, but acknowledged that her analytical abilities exceeded what he had expected from basic instruction. The following morning brought new developments to the situation. Colonel Mitchell arrived at his office to find 3 separate requests for meetings related to Emma's involvement in Harrison's training. The base commander wanted a briefing about irregular training procedures. The training command's head of instruction sought details about potentially valuable new teaching methods, and the public affairs office needed information about possible media interest in the story. Mitchell's first meeting was with Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Chun, the base commander, whose primary concern involved ensuring that proper protocols had been followed during civilian interaction with military training activities. Chun had built her career on maintaining strict adherence to safety regulations and legal requirements, and the unusual nature of the previous day's events required careful review. Colonel Mitchell, I need to understand exactly what happened yesterday, Chun began. The reports I've received describe civilian instruction of military personnel, which raises several policy and liability concerns. Mitchell provided a detailed account of Emma's observations and suggestions, emphasizing that all safety protocols have been maintained and that her contributions have been limited to technical advice delivered through proper communication channels. He stressed that Emma had never had direct access to weapons or ammunition, and that all instruction had been filtered through qualified military personnel. The results speak for themselves, Mitchell concluded. Candidate Harrison achieved qualification after weeks of failure using conventional instruction methods. Ms. Rodriguez identified technical problems that our experienced instructors had missed, and her suggested corrections proved immediately effective. Chen listened carefully to Mitchell's explanation, recognizing that the situation presented both risks and opportunities. Successful innovation in military training was always valuable, but irregular procedures could establish problematic precedents if not properly managed. I want a comprehensive report documenting every aspect of yesterday's events, Chen ordered. Include specific details about safety protocols, instructional methods, and measurable outcomes. We need to understand whether this was an isolated incident or whether it reveals gaps in our current training procedures. Mitchell's second meeting involved Chief Williams and the other senior marksmanship instructors, who were eager to discuss the technical aspects of Emma's contributions. The group had spent the previous evening analyzing her observations and comparing them with established instruction principles, finding remarkable consistency between her suggestions and advanced shooting techniques. Her understanding of breathing control equals what we teach in advanced sniper courses, reported Master Chief Thompson, whose 25 years of marksmanship instruction made him the facility's leading expert. The modifications she suggested for grip pressure and elbow placement are textbook examples of precision shooting fundamentals. Williams added his own assessment of Emma's analytical abilities. She identified technical problems from observation alone, without access to scoring data or target analysis. That level of diagnostic skill typically requires years of experience and extensive training. The instructors had developed several questions about Emma's background and the possibility of incorporating her insights into formal training curricula. They wanted to understand whether her approach to identifying and correcting technical problems might be systematically applied to help other struggling candidates. Mitchell found himself considering possibilities he had never previously contemplated. The military training system relied heavily on established methods and proven procedures, but Emma's success suggested that alternative approaches might offer valuable supplementary benefits. Meanwhile, word about Emma's achievement had reached beyond the immediate base community. Social media posts from military family members began spreading the story across various platforms, generating interest from civilian shooting enthusiasts, military veterans, and youth sports organizations. The narrative of a young girl successfully coaching elite military personnel appealed to audiences far beyond the military community. Rodriguez received his first media inquiry that afternoon, when a reporter from the local newspaper called seeking details about Emma's involvement in SEAL training activities. The conversation raised immediate concerns about privacy and security, prompting Rodriguez to contact Colonel Mitchell for guidance about appropriate responses to public interest. "Sir, I'm getting calls about Emma from people I don't know," Rodriguez reported. "I think someone posted about yesterday on social media, and now there's outside interest in what happened." Mitchell had anticipated that the story might attract external attention, but the speed of its spread surprised him. Military training activities typically received little civilian notice, but the human interest aspects of Emma's story made it particularly appealing to general audiences. Rodriguez, refer all media inquiries to the base public affairs office, Mitchell instructed. "We need to control the narrative and protect both Emma's privacy and operational security." The Public Affairs Office found itself managing multiple interview requests and social media inquiries about the little girl who trained Navy SEALs. Captain Rebecca Morrison, the base public affairs officer, recognized that the story had potential value for military recruitment and public relations, but also posed risks if not properly handled. Morrison contacted Rodriguez to discuss possible public engagement opportunities while emphasizing the importance of protecting Emma's privacy and maintaining appropriate security boundaries. The conversation revealed that Emma herself remained largely unaware of the attention her achievement was generating beyond the immediate base community. That evening, Emma asked her father about the possibility of returning to the base to observe additional training activities. Her interest in marksmanship instruction had been intensified by her successful experience with Harrison, and she wanted to learn more about military training methods and procedures. "Daddy, could I help other people who are having trouble shooting?" she asked. "I think I could teach them about breathing and elbow position." Rodriguez recognized his daughter's genuine desire to be helpful, but he also understood the complexities involved in any continued involvement with military training activities. Emma's natural talents were undeniable, but the implications of her participation in SEAL instruction required careful consideration. Meanwhile, Harrison's continued improvement provided additional evidence of Emma's effectiveness as an instructor. His subsequent range sessions maintained the technical standards he had achieved during qualification, suggesting that her teaching had produced lasting benefits rather than temporary improvement. Other SEAL candidates began expressing interest in receiving similar instruction, creating pressure on the training command to develop policies for incorporating Emma's insights into regular training activities. The instructors found themselves fielding questions about breathing techniques, grip pressure, and stance modifications based on Emma's successful interventions. Colonel Mitchell scheduled a meeting with Rodriguez for the following week to discuss possible formal arrangements for Emma's continued involvement in training activities. The conversation would need to address legal requirements, safety protocols, and educational benefits while protecting everyone's interests. The base medical officer, Major Dr. James Patterson, had also taken interest in Emma's apparent abilities. Dr. Patterson specialized in performance psychology and had extensive experience working with elite military personnel. He wanted to understand the cognitive and developmental factors that might explain Emma's unusual analytical capabilities. What we observed yesterday suggests exceptional pattern recognition and spatial reasoning abilities, Dr. Patterson told Mitchell during their discussion. Those capabilities, combined with early exposure to marksmanship fundamentals, might explain her effectiveness as an instructor. Dr. Patterson's analysis provided a scientific framework for understanding Emma's talents, while suggesting that her contributions might be systematically applied to benefit other candidates. The possibility of developing new training methods based on her approach offered intriguing possibilities for improving overall program effectiveness. Emma's notebook from the previous day had become an unofficial reference document among the marksmanship instructors. Her diagrams and technical notes provided clear illustrations of shooting principles that could be incorporated into formal instruction materials. The quality of her documentation suggested abilities that extended beyond practical shooting skills into educational and analytical domains. As the week progressed, the story continued to spread through military and civilian communities. Emma Rodriguez had become a minor celebrity whose achievement challenged assumptions about age, expertise, and the sources of effective instruction. Her success with Harrison proved that valuable insights could emerge from unexpected places when combined with careful observation and systematic application. The implications of Emma's involvement extended beyond immediate training benefits to broader questions about talent identification, alternative instruction methods, and the potential contributions of civilian expertise to military training programs. Her 8-year-old perspective had revealed aspects of marksmanship instruction that experienced professionals had overlooked. Rodriguez found himself proud of his daughter's achievement, while also concerned about managing the attention and opportunities her success was generating. Emma remained focused on the technical aspects of shooting instruction, apparently unaware that her 15 minutes at the firing range had initiated discussions about fundamental changes to military training approaches. The stage was set for more significant developments as military leadership, media representatives, and civilian shooting experts began requesting opportunities to observe or interact with a remarkable young girl who had successfully coached a Navy SEAL candidate to qualification. Emma's story was just beginning to unfold. 3 weeks after Emma's initial success with Harrison, Naval Base Coronado received an unexpected visit from Admiral Patricia Hayes, commander of Naval Special Warfare Command. Admiral Hayes had built her career on identifying and implementing innovative training methods that improve SEAL effectiveness, and reports about the 8-year-old marksmanship consultant had captured her attention immediately. The Admiral's visit was officially classified as a routine inspection of training facilities, but everyone understood that Emma Rodriguez was the primary reason for her presence. Admiral Hayes had specifically requested to observe ongoing marksmanship instruction and meet with personnel involved in recent training innovations. Her reputation for direct communication and decisive action had preceded her arrival. Colonel Mitchell found himself preparing for the most unusual briefing of his military career. The presentation materials included Harrison's training records, Emma's technical observations, scoring data from multiple candidates, and video footage from range sessions. Mitchell had never imagined explaining how an elementary school student had become an unofficial member of his training staff. Emma remained largely unaware of the attention her involvement had generated at higher command levels. She had returned to the base several times during the previous weeks, always accompanied by her father and always focused on helping struggling candidates improve their shooting techniques. Her notebook had grown thick with diagrams, observations, and technical notes that documented her expanding understanding of marksmanship instruction principles. Rodriguez had received formal orders assigning him as Emma's military escort during base visits, a designation that provided official status for her continued involvement while maintaining proper security protocols. The arrangement allowed Emma to observe training activities and provide technical consultation under appropriate supervision and within established safety boundaries. Admiral Hayes arrived at Naval Base Coronado on a Tuesday morning, accompanied by a small staff that included her aide, a training specialist, and a military psychiatrist whose expertise in performance psychology had contributed to several successful program modifications. The group was met by Colonel Mitchell and escorted directly to the training facilities. "Colonel Mitchell, I want to observe this young consultant in action before we discuss anything else," Admiral Hayes announced immediately after arriving. "I've read your reports, but I need to see firsthand what everyone is talking about." The timing of the Admiral's visit coincided with a scheduled remedial training session for 3 SEAL candidates who were struggling with marksmanship requirements. Petty Officers David Chun, Marcus Williams, and James Foster had all failed their initial qualification attempts and were facing potential removal from the program if they could not demonstrate acceptable improvement. Emma was already positioned in the observation area when Admiral Hayes arrived at the firing range. She was studying the 3 candidates through the bulletproof glass, making notes in her ever-present notebook about stance variations and equipment handling techniques. Emma's focus remained entirely on technical analysis, apparently oblivious to the presence of the Navy's highest-ranking special warfare officer. "That's her," Rodriguez whispered to Admiral Hayes, pointing toward the small figure who was currently drawing detailed diagrams of proper elbow positioning. "She's been working with struggling candidates for 3 weeks now, and her success rate is remarkable." Admiral Hayes studied Emma with the same intensity she typically reserved for evaluating combat readiness reports. The Admiral had expected to meet a precocious child with unusual interests, but Emma's professional demeanor and systematic approach to technical analysis suggested capabilities that transcended typical expectations about age and experience. Chief Williams began the training session with standard remedial instruction procedures. The 3 candidates assumed firing positions while Williams provided individual coaching about grip pressure, sight alignment, and breathing control. Admiral Hayes observed the conventional instruction methods while noting Emma's reactions to various technical problems and solutions. Emma raised her hand to request permission to speak, just as she had during her first range session 3 weeks earlier. Colonel Mitchell activated the communication system, allowing her voice to reach the firing line clearly. "The man in lane 5 is holding his breath too long again," Emma announced. "His shoulders get tight when he does that, and it makes his shots go high." Williams confirmed that Chun, the candidate in lane 5, was indeed experiencing accuracy problems with shots consistently striking above the target center. The correlation between Emma's observation and the actual shooting results impressed Admiral Hayes, who had extensive experience evaluating training effectiveness. Miss Rodriguez, can you identify specific corrections for the other candidates as well? Admiral Hayes asked through the communication system. Emma studied Williams and Foster carefully before responding. The man in lane 6 needs to move his left foot back about 2 inches. His weight is wrong, so he can't stay steady. And the man in lane 7 should close his left eye until he gets more comfortable. He's trying to use both eyes, but it's making him confused about which sight picture to trust. Admiral Hayes looked at Colonel Mitchell with raised eyebrows. Emma's technical analysis addressed 3 different fundamental problems with specific, actionable solutions. The fact that she could diagnose multiple issues simultaneously while providing distinct correction strategies suggested analytical capabilities that rivaled professional instruction expertise. Williams implemented Emma's suggestions systematically, working with each candidate to make the recommended adjustments. Chun modified his breathing pattern, Williams adjusted his stance, and Foster switched to single eyesight alignment. The changes were subtle, but immediately noticeable to experienced observers. Commence firing, Williams commanded. The improvement in performance was immediate and dramatic. All 3 candidates shot significantly better than their previous attempts, with Chun achieving his best scores in weeks of remedial training. Admiral Hayes watched the results with growing amazement, recognizing that Emma's interventions had produced measurable benefits within minutes of implementation. Emma continued providing real-time coaching throughout the session, identifying grip pressure problems, suggesting sight alignment modifications, and offering encouragement when candidates successfully applied her technical recommendations. Her instruction style combined detailed technical knowledge with an intuitive understanding of individual learning needs. Cease fire, Williams announced after the candidates completed their qualification attempts. The scoring results exceeded everyone's expectations. Chun had achieved a qualifying score of 82 points, Williams scored 85, and Foster managed 81 points. All 3 candidates had overcome their marksmanship difficulties and secured their places in the SEAL program, largely due to Emma's technical guidance and coaching. Admiral Hayes requested a brief recess to discuss the session with her staff. The group gathered in Mitchell's office while Emma remained at the observation platform, updating her notebook with detailed documentation of the successful training session. Colonel Mitchell, what we just observed challenges every assumption I have about training methodology and talent identification, Admiral Hayes said bluntly. That child demonstrated instructional capabilities that most of our professional staff take years to develop. Dr. Margaret Chun, the military psychiatrist accompanying Admiral Hayes, had been taking detailed notes about Emma's analytical process and communication methods. Her preliminary assessment suggested that Emma's abilities represented a rare combination of pattern recognition, spatial reasoning, and technical comprehension that enabled her to diagnose and solve complex performance problems intuitively. Admiral, what we're seeing appears to be an exceptional case of early talent identification, Dr. Chen explained. Emma's analytical capabilities, combined with early exposure to marksmanship fundamentals, have produced expertise that transcends normal developmental expectations. Admiral Hayes had built her career on recognizing and developing exceptional talent within the military community. Emma's demonstrated abilities suggested possibilities for training innovation that could benefit the entire special warfare program, but implementing such innovations would require careful planning and appropriate protections. Colonel Mitchell, I want to observe one more demonstration before making any decisions about future involvement, Admiral Hayes announced. Can you arrange for Miss Rodriguez to work with your most challenging remedial case? Mitchell knew immediately which candidate Admiral Hayes was referring to. Petty Officer Robert Zhang had been struggling with marksmanship requirements for over 2 months, failing multiple qualification attempts despite intensive remedial instruction. Zhang's case had become a test to the training program's ability to develop marksmanship skills in candidates who showed excellence in all other areas. Zhang was a former college athlete whose physical fitness, leadership abilities, and tactical knowledge exceeded program standards, but whose shooting accuracy remained frustratingly inconsistent. Multiple instructors had worked with him using every available technique, but his qualification scores continued to fall short of minimum requirements. Emma was briefed about Zhang's situation and asked whether she wanted to attempt helping him succeed. Her immediate response demonstrated the confidence and determination that had characterized all her previous training involvement. "I want to watch him shoot a few times first," Emma said. "Then I can figure out what's wrong and how to fix it." Zhang was brought to the firing range and introduced to Emma through the observation platform communication system. His initial reaction mixed skepticism with hope, recognizing that conventional instruction methods had failed, but maintaining uncertainty about receiving coaching from someone younger than his little sister. Emma studied Zhang's shooting technique with the same systematic intensity she had applied to all previous candidates. Her observations covered stance, grip pressure, breathing pattern, sight alignment, and trigger control, creating a comprehensive analysis of his technical approach. "He's trying too hard," Emma announced after watching Zhang fire 10 rounds. "When you try to be perfect with every shot, you get tight muscles and forget about breathing. He needs to relax and trust his training more." Admiral Hayes recognized the accuracy of Emma's assessment. Overthinking and excessive tension were common problems among high-achieving candidates who struggle with marksmanship requirements. Zhang's athletic background might actually contribute to his shooting difficulties by creating pressure to perform at levels that interfered with natural technique development. Emma's coaching approach with Zhang differed from her work with previous candidates. Instead of focusing primarily on technical corrections, she emphasized mental approach and confidence building while making subtle adjustments to his physical technique. "Stop trying to aim so carefully," Emma told Zhang. "Just point the rifle where you want the bullet to go and trust your sight picture. When the sights look right, squeeze the trigger slowly and smoothly." Zhang's subsequent performance showed immediate improvement, but Emma continued working with him to address deeper issues related to performance anxiety and perfectionism. Her insights about psychological factors that affected shooting accuracy impressed Admiral Hayes, who recognized that Emma's coaching addressed both technical and mental aspects of marksmanship instruction. Over the course of an hour-long session, Zhang's shooting scores improved consistently until he achieved his first qualifying score in over 2 months of training. His success represented Emma's most challenging coaching assignment and demonstrated that her abilities extended beyond simple technical correction to comprehensive performance enhancement. Admiral Hayes had seen enough to make her decision about Emma's future involvement with military training activities. The demonstrations had proven that Emma possessed remarkable coaching abilities that could benefit the entire special warfare training program, but implementing formal arrangements would require careful consideration of legal, safety, and developmental factors. "Colonel Mitchell, I want to discuss establishing a formal consultation agreement with Miss Rodriguez and her family," Admiral Hayes announced. "Her contributions to training effectiveness are too valuable to remain unofficial and ad hoc." The proposal represented a significant expansion of Emma's involvement, moving from occasional base visits to structured participation in training program development. Admiral Hayes envisioned Emma contributing to instructor training, curriculum development, and performance analysis activities that could improve outcomes for struggling candidates throughout the special warfare community. Rodriguez was asked to join the discussion about potential formal arrangements for Emma's continued involvement. The conversation would need to address educational benefits for Emma, appropriate compensation for her family, legal protections, and safety protocols that ensured her well-being while maximizing her contributions to training effectiveness. Emma remained focused on updating her notebook while the adults discussed her future involvement in military training activities. She had filled over 30 pages with technical diagrams, coaching notes, and performance observations that documented her growing expertise in marksmanship instruction and candidate development. The afternoon had established Emma Rodriguez as a legitimate training resource whose contributions could enhance SEAL program effectiveness on a systematic basis. Admiral Hayes left Naval Base Coronado with plans to integrate Emma's insights into formal training protocols while protecting her interests and supporting her continued development. Emma's journey from curious 8-year-old observer to official military training consultant was about to take another significant step forward, with implications that would extend far beyond individual candidate success to program-wide improvements in training methodology and effectiveness. 6 months after Emma's first visit to Naval Base Coronado, the young marksmanship consultant had become an integral part of the SEAL training program. Admiral Hayes had successfully navigated the complex legal and administrative requirements necessary to establish Emma as an official civilian contractor, creating the first formal arrangement of its kind in military history. The precedent had attracted attention from training commands throughout the Department of Defense. Emma's consultation agreement included provisions for her education, ensuring that her involvement with military training activities complemented rather than interfered with her academic development. A special curriculum had been designed that incorporated her military training work into advanced mathematics, physics, and psychology studies, providing educational benefits that exceeded traditional classroom learning. The Rodriguez family had moved to base housing, allowing Emma easier access to training facilities while providing her father with a promotion to Master Chief and assignment as the base's senior marksmanship coordinator. The arrangement represented a significant career advancement for Rodriguez, while recognizing his essential role in managing Emma's training activities and protecting her interests. Emma's training consultation office occupied a converted classroom adjacent to the firing range facilities. The space contained specialized furniture size for her use, advanced computer equipment for performance analysis, and extensive reference materials about marksmanship instruction and human performance psychology. Her notebook collection had grown to fill multiple binders that documented successful coaching techniques and training innovations. The impact of Emma's involvement extended far beyond individual candidate success stories. Training failure rates in marksmanship had decreased by over 60% since the implementation of her coaching methods, saving significant resources while improving overall program effectiveness. Multiple SEAL classes had achieved perfect qualification rates for the first time in the program's history. Emma's influence had also revolutionized instructor training throughout the special warfare community. Her systematic approach to identifying and correcting technical problems had been incorporated into formal instruction protocols, improving the effectiveness of professional training staff. Master Chiefs with decades of experience sought Emma's insights about candidate assessment and performance enhancement. National media attention had transformed Emma into a celebrity whose story inspired discussions about talent development, educational policy, and the potential contributions of young people to professional activities. Multiple book and movie proposals had been submitted to the Rodriguez family, though they had declined most commercial opportunities in favor of maintaining focus on Emma's training work and education. Dr. Chin's ongoing psychological assessment of Emma had contributed valuable research about early talent identification and development. The findings suggested that exceptional analytical capabilities could manifest at much younger ages than previously recognized, with appropriate support and structured environments enabling remarkable achievements. Emma's case had become a subject of academic study in multiple fields. Emma's coaching techniques have been documented in a comprehensive training manual that was distributed throughout special operations communities. The manual included her breathing control methods, stance adjustment protocols, and psychological coaching approaches that address performance anxiety and confidence building. Multiple military branches had requested permission to implement her techniques in their own training programs. The success of Emma's consultation arrangement had led to discussions about identifying and developing other young people with exceptional abilities in military-related fields. Admiral Hayes had initiated a pilot program for talent identification that could provide structured opportunities for gifted youth to contribute to defense activities while supporting their educational development. Emma herself had continued to evolve as both a consultant and a student. Her technical knowledge had expanded to include ballistics, human biomechanics, and cognitive psychology, creating a comprehensive understanding of factors that affected shooting performance. She regularly consulted with university researchers and military scientists about performance optimization and training methodology. Harrison, The candidate whose initial success had established Emma's reputation had completed SEAL training and been assigned to an operational team. He maintained regular contact with Emma, providing feedback about the practical application of her coaching techniques in real-world situations. His continued success validated the long-term benefits of her instruction methods. Emma's consultation work had expanded beyond basic marksmanship to include other aspects of SEAL training where her analytical abilities proved valuable. She had contributed to improvements in physical fitness assessment, stress inoculation training, and team performance evaluation, demonstrating that her talents extended beyond shooting instruction to general performance analysis. The international military community had taken notice of Emma's achievements, with training delegations from allied nations visiting Naval Base Coronado to observe her consultation methods. Several countries had inquired about implementing similar talent identification and development programs within their own special operations communities. Emma's daily routine now included formal consultation sessions with struggling candidates, instructor training activities, research collaboration with military scientists, and continuing education in advanced topics related to human performance and training methodology. Her schedule was carefully managed to ensure appropriate balance between work responsibilities and normal childhood development activities. The base community had fully embraced Emma as a valued member whose contributions enhanced everyone's effectiveness. She participated in family activities, attended base social events, and maintained friendships with other military children while also serving as a respected professional consultant whose expertise was sought throughout the military community. Emma's influence had extended to civilian shooting sports, where her techniques had been adopted by competitive teams and individual marksmen seeking performance improvements. Multiple civilian shooting organizations had invited her to conduct training clinics and seminars, though her military consultation commitments limited her availability for external activities. Rodriguez watched his daughter's development with pride and amazement, recognizing that her unique talents had created opportunities neither of them had imagined possible. Emma's success had demonstrated that exceptional ability could manifest at any age when combined with appropriate support, structured development, and meaningful opportunities for contribution. The long-term implications of Emma's involvement continued to unfold as military training programs incorporated her insights into standard operating procedures. Her emphasis on individual assessment and customized coaching had influenced training philosophy throughout the special operations community, promoting more personalized approaches to candidate development. Emma's notebook collection had evolved into a comprehensive database of training techniques, performance analysis methods, and individual assessment protocols that represented one of the most valuable resources available to military marksmanship instruction. The documentation provided detailed guidance for implementing her methods across different training environments and candidate populations. The success of Emma's consultation arrangement had established new possibilities for civilian-military cooperation in training and development activities. Her achievements demonstrated that valuable expertise could exist outside traditional military structures, encouraging more innovative approaches to talent identification and utilization. Emma's impact on individual candidates remained the most personally satisfying aspect of her consultation work. Over 200 struggling SEAL candidates had achieved qualification through her coaching, enabling them to pursue their special operations career goals. Each success story reinforced the value of her contributions and motivated her continued involvement in training activities. As Emma approached her 9th birthday, her reputation as the youngest military training consultant in history was well established. Her techniques had been implemented across multiple military branches. Her research contributions had advanced understanding of human performance optimization, and her coaching had enabled hundreds of service members to achieve their operational goals. The future held unlimited possibilities for Emma's continued development and contribution. Advanced education opportunities in military science, human performance research, and training methodology would provide foundations for even greater achievements. Her early success had established patterns of excellence that suggested remarkable accomplishments throughout her career. Emma Rodriguez had transformed from a curious 8-year-old observer into a respected professional whose expertise was valued throughout the military community. Her journey from a family pickup truck to official military consultant demonstrated that extraordinary talent could emerge at any age when combined with opportunity, support, and dedication to helping others achieve their potential. The colonel who had initially dismissed her request to visit the firing range now served as one of her strongest advocates, having witnessed firsthand the transformation her involvement had brought to SEAL training effectiveness. Colonel Mitchell frequently spoke about the importance of recognizing talent regardless of its source, using Emma's example to encourage openness to unconventional solutions and innovative approaches. Emma's legacy extended beyond immediate training improvements to fundamental changes in how the military community approached talent development and performance enhancement. Her success had demonstrated that exceptional contributions could come from unexpected sources when proper support structures and development opportunities were provided. The story of Emma Rodriguez served as inspiration for countless young people whose talents might otherwise remain unrecognized or undeveloped. Her achievements prove that age, size, and conventional expectations should never limit the pursuit of excellence or the opportunity to contribute meaningfully to important activities. As Emma continued her work at Naval Base Coronado, helping new generations of SEAL candidates achieve their qualification goals, her influence spread throughout the military community and beyond. The 8-year-old girl who had shocked a colonel and amazed Navy SEALs had become a symbol of unlimited human potential and the power of recognizing excellence wherever it might be found. Emma's notebook lay open on her desk, filled with new observations and coaching techniques that would help tomorrow's candidates overcome their challenges and achieve their dreams. Her work was far from finished, and the impact of her contributions would continue to grow as more people discovered that sometimes the most valuable lessons come from the most unexpected teachers.